are live. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Sarah.
I'm Paulina.
And we are going to take over Kelly and Ryan's Facebook Live this morning.
Yes, very exciting.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about micro-influencers today. Sarah wrote a wonderful blog about it, so if you ever want to learn more after we finish talking about it, please go over and show it some love. Learn some stuff. Well, we'll jump right in, right? Are you ready? All right,
Yeah.
so we're
Always
talking
ready.
about micro-influencers, so I think my first question for you is kind of just why businesses should be using influencers in the first place and kind of what they are in general.
So I think the biggest thing with influencers is that when you have an existing brand, you basically want to be able to promote it to other people other than just your own audience, and that's where influencers come into play. They have access to a wider range in terms of audience, so it's just a way to get an extra push in order to promote your brand or to sell a specific product if you want. So I think when you have multiple options when it comes to pitching or promoting your brand, then having an influencer is just like a positive boost to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting it out to a different group of
exactly.
people, and also adding some credibility to your brand as well. Seeing that someone big is really into it, or even knows about it, really helps get people interested and also believing that it's a good brand.
Yeah, it's a way. I mean, it's that extra push to get it, and especially in the sense that you have to find the right type of influencer, which again is explained in the blog, and there is a whole process when it comes to that. And so if you have the right technique to finding the right type of influencer, if they're related to your brand in some way, then that's the way that you should go in terms of promoting your brand.
Absolutely. So since we're talking about micro-influencers and how they kind of vary, can you explain kind of what a micro-influencer is as opposed to a macro-influencer?
Yeah. So there are multiple kinds of influencers. The two main ones are micro and macro. There's also, I guess, it depends on the type of person that you're speaking to, because bloggers fall under micro as well. But the main difference between macro and micro is literally in the term macro and micro. Micro is considered to be a smaller audience. We're talking about 1,000 to 10,000, pushing up to even 20 to 30,000, but you have to try and keep it small. And then macro is anyone between who has 100,000 plus audience range. And I'm talking about public figures that are on Instagram, celebrities, people who usually have that endorsed check mark when it comes to on Instagram or Facebook. So they're very much recognized in all over the world, not necessarily in the US. So they have a reputation already. But when it comes to micro, they're very niche focused. So they focus on a certain type of topic, I guess. It could be even the bloggers that we work with. You can have mommy bloggers, people talking specifically about food, people talking about health, people talking about life with kids. It's very niche focused. So they talk about a certain type of thing, they stick to it. They have a good reputation when it comes to them representing that part of their life in some way. And that's when they come to be the most reliable, because of the fact that they're very knowledgeable in what they're trying to promote and what they're doing.
Right, and so you just mentioned the niches that can exist. So you can have lifestyle niches, the mommy bloggers. You can also have geographical niches, people that kind of focus on certain areas. You can have, a multitude of niches depending on industry as well.
Yeah.
There's influencers for everything, basically, right?
You don't have to be you can build your reputation and build your audience with what you're speaking about. So it can just start from starting a blog.
Right.
It could be as simple as even starting on Instagram and posting pictures. Once you start building a reputation and getting followers, and once you have a certain number of followers, then you can qualify in the micro or the macro category.
Perfect. So we talked about micro versus macro. Why do you think it's better to go with a micro influencer rather than a macro?
So it's always this is the biggest question that people ask: why shouldn't you move forward with somebody who has 1 million followers? Like, I know it would be great to work with celebrities.
Yeah.
Like, I know every type of business wants to work with a well-known brand, so that way they think that they can get a lot of likes and engagement, but it actually comes with, when you work with micro-influencers, that's the main way that you can get that extra boost and you get a lot of engagement because of the fact that they know what they're doing. So it needs to be, you need to promote your brand and utilize a person that has knowledge in that certain field, because you can't pitch it to somebody who, like a celebrity, who doesn't really, can't give a personal touch to it. Like, this is the biggest thing that we also look in bloggers, is them being able to relate to your product somehow, them adding that personal touch and promoting it in that way. It makes a lot more sense for your brand to have that affiliation with somebody like that, rather than a celebrity or somebody who has a huge following where they can't even engage with their own, you know, content online. If they're not commenting and liking people's comments, then you know that they're not very much involved in what they're doing. They're kind of out in the background.
Yeah, and that they're excited and authentically excited about what you're doing.
Exactly, being very excited. You have to be positive about it. You have to be excited. That's the only way that you're going to convince your audience to purchase a product or to be able to follow a brand. Or,
because they're excited about it. They want to share what you're doing, and they want to be a part of it, and they want other people to be a part of it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of, a macro influencer can't give that personal touch necessarily. Sometimes they can be really excited, but for a lot of instances, they can't have that kind of connection.
It's kind of there in like the background. If you have a celebrity who's promoting a product, like one day they'll be promoting a certain type of product, and the next day they'll be having another type of product. Another big thing that I completely forgot to mention is cost. When you have a certain budget when it comes to business, you want to be able to conserve your costs but get a lot of engagement and get a lot of boost from that. And if you're working with a celebrity, they can charge over $100,000, let's say, rather than when you work with a micro-influencer, the charges are a lot less and you get a lot more from the money that you're spending.
Right. You're working with a smaller audience, but a much more engaged and excited audience when you work with a micro-influencer. So we kind of talked about the differences. So now, if you're excited about micro-influencers, how do people start? How do people get on board with it and start the process of getting a micro-influencer to represent them?
So the first step is to look at your existing audience, because a lot of the times the micro-influencers have already previously engaged with your content. So you go through your followers and figure out, like, if you are working in a certain type of niche or your brand is sold in a certain niche, so you look into that audience to see like if you already are engaging with somebody. So you can find like existing influencers through that, or then there's a lot of websites that are platform based that are specifically for influencer marketing. Like, you can search up certain keywords based on your brand. So the way that your brand is represented through hashtags and keywords, you can search those up through Google, even Bing, any type of search engine. And then also there's a lot of platforms, which I've mentioned in my blog, that are specifically focused for this influencer marketing stuff. A lot of them have free trials, which you can always try out. And then eventually, like, if you want to invest some money, it's not very expensive to be able to use these features.
Right. And that's where you start. And you just kind of have to do your research and really get into it that way.
You basically have to look at what categories your brand is based off of, and based on those categories, that's how you filter out the type of influencer that you want to work with.
Yeah, so if you're really looking for someone in Orange County that's very much a part of Orange County, you need to be doing some kind of geographic filtering. If you're looking for mommy bloggers. If
you're looking for like a food blogger in Orange County, then you would search Orange County food bloggers, or even be specific if it's based off who like to follow the keto diet, which is a big trending thing right now. Then you have to search it based on those type of keywords to get a very, very niche focused type of audience and type of influencer.
So once you kind of get your list of people that you're potentially wanting to work with, how do you take that to the next step? How do you get them to be excited about your brand and actually want to work with you?
Well, a lot of the times if they already have a presence and if they're in the same industry as you, or they specifically talk about the same industry as you, then they themselves will already be excited. Like, it just depends on the relationship that you want to build with them and the way that you approach them. Because a lot of them are already very positive. They want to be able to help you out as a business. So I don't think that there's necessarily a way that you can approach them. I think it's just a matter of you trying to pitch your idea to them and being able to promote it, and it's a matter of them saying yes or no to it. But there are like genuine people who, especially that's when it comes to micro-influencers, because they're so engaged with their own audience that they would be willing to help you as a brand and as a company out.
Yeah, and it's always important to set strict rules with how you want them to be promoting your content as well. You want them to be able to be creative and be authentic with whatever they're posting, whatever they're writing about, but at the same time you also want to make sure that they're doing what you need them to do. You need to be saying, okay, this isn't okay, this is what we want, but be creative within these parameters.
And I feel like there's a big trust factor as well. Like, you should be able to trust that person who is promoting your brand. Like, it's very scary, I know that, because you have to have a certain reputation and they have a certain reputation, but once that trust factor comes into play, then there's a lot that can happen, and then you have to encourage them to add that personal touch, their own personal experience with brand. But of course, set some guidelines, have that skeleton ready for whatever you want them to say or promote, but then let them also be creative. You don't want to just have it like where it's like a specific text and then it doesn't sound like it's genuine when it's coming from them.
Yeah, you don't want to do their work for them. Their portion of the work is going to be to input their own personal touch and their style. And you always want to make sure that your brands align, because even if you like them and they like you and your brands don't necessarily speak to each other, it's not going to work because their audience isn't gonna vibe with that. But so my last question is, what are some things to look out for when you're looking for micro-influencers? I know we kind of talked about it, but are there some kind of danger signs that like, oh, I should steer clear of this? Or are there some things, if I see this, I should definitely kind of make sure that I have an influencer that does this?
I think focus on influencers that are already talking about the industry that you're in. You don't want to completely, do a 180 and go to somebody who's not even talking about your brand. Like, they should have, I think when it comes to looking at or trying to find the right influencer, you have to go onto their social media pages and make sure that
you have to do your research.
Essentially it's doing your research. But it ultimately, like, you set a budget, you agree on a budget with however much you want to spend, however much they're willing to, take and ask for, and it's just kind of like a trial and error. You just have to find
the right people.
You have to find like a certain amount of people and then just figure out, and I feel like with time you'll understand like the way that they work, the way that you work, and the kind of relationship that you can build for the future.
Yeah, and even if you wanted to maybe get into micro-influencers might be a great start to get into influencer marketing at all.
Especially since they're small businesses.
Yeah.
Like, small businesses have a smaller budget when it comes to spending money, so you don't want to completely like jump into the deep end of the pool and
that was a very weird sneeze, sorry.
Bless you.
Thank you.
But you don't want to jump into the deep end of the pool and then regret it later on because you're not getting that much engagement. You're not getting leads that are generating for your brand. So you should start small. This is the best way. This is the best way right now, and everyone is talking about it. So
yeah, absolutely.
Trust us. Trust yourself. Trust your brand. And
exactly.
It'll work out then.
I mean, this wasn't kind of planned, but do you have any influencers that you love to follow and that really actually turn you on to certain brands?
Yeah, so I mean, I like to look at usually local bloggers, especially when, so I mean, I'm Muslim and there's a lot of limited type of restaurants, especially here in Orange County or Los Angeles. They're building a lot more now, but I like to follow like trends that are happening like within our community or our culture.
That's great.
But it's mostly like I mean, I follow a lot of movie bloggers too because I'm obsessed with TV and movies. But stick to the basics. What about you?
I was trying to think of it as you were talking. I don't think I have any that kind of come to mind. I mean, yeah, I think it's the same thing where even if it's friends can kind of be in the, they're very influential. They're very influential parts of, influencing you into what kind of decisions you make. So I think I take a lot from friends that I follow, and even some celebrities when they promote brands, but it's brands that the people that run those brands are friends. Mm-hmm. I tend to trust that a lot more. I tend to trust relationships that have already, like, I'm working with this person because they're my friend and because I actually really do support whatever they're doing. And so those kind of real and genuine connections are what I like to see when I'm looking for new things.
And that's what businesses should be doing when it comes to looking for that relationship.
Yeah.
But
all right, I think if you want to learn more, definitely check out the blog. And we'll be doing a few more blogs on micro-influencers, so we'll be going kind of in more depth on this topic for this month. So want to close it out with a podcast recommendation as always?
Yeah, so I have been really into NPR for the last few years, especially specifically when the Serial podcast started.
Is it part of NPR?
Yeah, it's part of This American Life, and then it's somehow, I mean, Sarah Koenig speaks for NPR, the lady who is
there's
the
that
speaker.
connection.
Yeah, so it is somehow connected. But season 1 was amazing. I remember my sisters and I would stay up till like 2 a.m. just listening
needing to know what happened.
This podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
But there's also This American Life, and then even the general NPR stuff. I've been very into like current events and the news, and even the other day when we were going for lunch, I was like, I'm sorry, but I have to listen to NPR in the morning because it just, I guess, gives me a breather from everything else that's happening in the world. Like, it just keeps me up to date, and I like to, just know what's going on.
It's always good to be informed.
And my little brother is very much into current events, so he also encourages me. He's 15, by the way, so he knows. If he knows more than me, then I know that there's an issue with me. So I'm like, okay, I need to know more than him. But
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye bye.